Since it is a very different scene, let's bring in Ed Davis. He's the former Boston Police Commissioner and a Fox News contributor. Sir, thank you for joining us. Can you tell us what the city did in preparation for this event? As we heard from Steve Harrigan, there's about approximately 15,000 people who are already out and about this morning.
Right. This is a huge crowd. Good afternoon to both of you. Commissioner Evans was on television yesterday, and he talked about the various plans that they put in place. They have 500 police officers. They have barricades. They have significant numbers of cameras in the area to hold people accountable. And what they're doing right now is maintaining the barricade that's been put up. There's an area for the counter-protesters. There's an area for a free speech zone for the people who want to talk. And then there's a bit of a buffer zone that's filled with police officers in between there. They've put together significant plans to deal with this crowd.
You know, you and I were talking this time last weekend, and in fact we saw a very different scene. Obviously the two different groups had collided at this point last weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm curious as to how you prevent that from happening when you have such a big crowd, because although there are 15,000 now, and that's huge, we could see even more. So keeping those two groups separate, how are law enforcement going to be able to accomplish that?
Well, the first thing they're going to do is use the training that they've been filled in on and the tactics that they know very well, because they've managed a bunch of events like this, to keep those crowds separate. They have public order platoons, officers, large numbers of officers if it's necessary to end the event and to push crowds in one way or the other. They have quick response teams that are out there. The guys that you saw on bicycles are specially trained to go into the fray if something happens somewhere inside that crowd. But the main responsibility is going to be to keep those two groups separate. And considering the numbers, the discrepancy in numbers here, tens of thousands on one side, a handful on the other, their job may be to escort those individuals away if any trouble starts. Just get them out of the area very quickly so that the large crowd will not be able to get their hands on them. That
was going to be sort of my next question, because we watched some of the violence unfold, and you know, there was some criticism that perhaps law enforcement didn't act soon enough in Charlottesville, and then I know that there was some trepidation for law enforcement to actually enter in some of the altercations that were taking place. I suspect that we won't see that trepidation when it comes to law enforcement in Boston.
Well, the great thing about the Boston Police Department is they have an enormous amount of experience in this area. They managed, when I was there, the Occupy movement. We've had 7 sports victories that resulted in some rioting that occurred. The officers are well-trained and well-experienced in this area. You will see a much more forward-leaning police department here than what you saw in Charlottesville. And that's not to criticize the Charlottesville police.
Right.
There were a lot of tactical reasons why they couldn't do what they could do. But here, it's well-planned, it's in an open area, and the police will not accept any violent behavior. They'll move quickly to stop it.
Right. My final question is sort of the elephant in the room, because on the heels of the attack in Barcelona this week, you can't help but be really concerned about outside sources coming in. It has nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, nothing to do with the free speech group, but perhaps terror. And are they looking at the possibility on any open entry for a van to get through? I mean, this is on the mind of just about everyone right now.
There's no question that's a great concern, especially with this crowd that's there right now. They have a significant amount of police resources that could intervene if anyone did anything like that. The great concern, though, today are people like the Black Bloc and the anarchists. They've come here all masked up. They've done that because they don't want to be held accountable for their behavior. So there are special undercover teams right now watching those individuals, making sure they don't get violent, and if they do, forces will descend upon them very quickly.
Well, Ed Davis, we're thinking of all the law enforcement out there today. We thank them for their service. We thank you for joining us today, sir, and we hope the day stays as peaceful as it is right now. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.